Before we dive into this chilling case, make sure you hit subscribe, because the truth we're about to uncover, it's darker, colder, and far more unsettling than anything you've heard this week. The flames were already devouring the night sky when the first 911 call came in. A small sedan, engulfed in bright, violent fire, sat stranded on the shoulder of a rural Ohio backroad. The blaze hissed and cracked like something alive. Across the asphalt, a man stumbled in circles, shouting, waving his arms, screaming for help that wasn't coming fast enough. His name was Ethan Ward, 36 years old. Soot smeared across his face, his hair half singed, his breath sharp with smoke. He looked like a survivor clawing his way out of a nightmare. But something about the scene didn't sit right. Witnesses later told police that Ethan wasn't trying to approach the car. He was backing away from it. Hands trembling, eyes darting, muttering something no one could clearly understand. By the time firefighters arrived, flames had already taken full control. When they finally cracked open the back door, melted handle, glass warped, they found the tiny, lifeless body of a child still strapped in her car seat. 2 years old, a girl. Her name was Aubrey. The moment the firefighters stepped back from the wreck, the air seemed to freeze. Even seasoned officers felt it. A pressure, a wrongness, as if the fire had burned away not only metal and rubber but the truth itself. Ethan staggered toward the responders, shouting, "She wasn't in there! I swear she wasn't in there! I checked!" His voice cracked, wild, desperate. "She wasn't in the car!" But the officers had just pulled Aubrey's body out of the back seat, and Ethan's story was already unraveling. Detective Maya Keller arrived minutes later, calm and sharp-eyed, the kind of investigator who could see lies before they were spoken. She crouched beside the charred car, scanning the melting interior. Something was off. The front driver's door was open, the driver's seat pushed far back, and the window smashed outward. But the back seat remained intact, aside from the burns. Aubrey hadn't unbuckled herself. She hadn't tried to escape. She'd been left there. Keller stood and looked at Ethan. He was pacing now, clutching his arms, repeating the same words over and over. "I tried to save her. I tried. She wasn't there. She wasn't there." Paramedics whispered that he had no burns on his hands, no cuts, no smoke in his lungs. For a man who claimed he tried to pull a child from a burning car, he looked remarkably untouched. Keller approached him. "Ethan, we found your daughter in the back seat." His head snapped up. His eyes were wide, almost offended. No, you didn't. I took her out. I put her down by the tree line. Someone must have grabbed her." "Grabbed her?" Keller asked quietly. "In less than 3 minutes?" He froze. The wind shifted, blowing the smell of gasoline across the scene. Gasoline that didn't belong in the pattern the fire had created. Something intentional. Something placed. Keller's gaze hardened. And then, as the firefighters extinguished the final flames, one of them called out, "Detective, you'll want to see this, in the trunk." Keller stepped forward, bracing herself, because what she found inside that trunk would change the entire direction of the investigation. The firefighter's voice carried a weight that silenced the entire scene. Detective Keller moved toward the back of the charred sedan, boots crunching on broken glass and hardened foam. Smoke curled upward like the last breath of a dying secret. The firefighter stepped aside. It was wedged under the spare. Looks like someone didn't want it found. Keller leaned in.
Inside the trunk, half melted but still unmistakable, lay a red plastic gasoline container, its cap twisted tight, its sides dented as though shoved into place in a hurry. Next to it was something even stranger, a small, blackened tablet, cracked but still readable enough to reveal a child's lock screen wallpaper. Aubrey's wallpaper, a picture of the little girl smiling in a sunflower field. Keller's chest tightened. The device hadn't been thrown in during the chaos. It had been hidden, buried beneath the spare tire intentionally. Why would Ethan hide his daughter's tablet unless he didn't want investigators seeing what was on it or when it had last been used? She closed the trunk slowly, her eyes drifting toward the firefighter tape, where Ethan sat on the hood of an ambulance. His legs swung restlessly, hands fidgeting, lips moving in silent, frantic monologue. He looked like a man trying to rehearse a story that kept slipping between his fingers. Keller walked toward him. "Ethan," she said calmly, "we found gasoline in the trunk." His entire body stiffened. "Gasoline? I don't use gas cans. I fill up at stations. Someone must have put it there." "You said the fire started while you were driving. Engine failure, right?" "That's what I said. But the burn pattern is wrong. There were traces of accelerant outside the vehicle too. That doesn't happen with accidental fires." Ethan's eyes began to flutter rapidly. "You think I did this? You think I would hurt my own daughter?" Keller didn't answer. Instead, she studied his hands again. Perfectly clean, untouched. Across the road, an officer approached carrying Ethan's phone inside an evidence bag. "Detective," he said, "we pulled the recent call log. He called 911 at 10:17 p.m. And before that?" The officer hesitated. "He deleted the last several entries, but not from the cloud." Keller took a breath. "Tell me." 2 calls to a woman named Sabrina Hale and 1 40-second voicemail from him to her, time-stamped at 9:53. Ethan began shaking his head before the officer even finished. "I don't know what she said. We weren't together anymore. She had nothing to do with this." Keller leaned in. "Funny, because Sabrina called the station 10 minutes ago. She says the opposite." Ethan blinked slowly, confusion and fear mixing behind his eyes. "She says," Keller continued, "that you told her you were going to fix everything tonight. That you had a plan Ethan's parents would never forget. And she claims you mentioned Aubrey." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan swallowed hard. "Sabrina lies. She always lies." "Then you won't mind coming down to the station," Keller said, stepping aside as 2 officers approached. "Because one way or another, we're going to find out who's lying." As they guided him into the patrol car, Ethan suddenly pulled back, twisting to look at the burned shell of his vehicle. "You don't understand!" he shouted. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't mean for her to—" His voice cracked. Then the door slammed shut. Detective Teller took one last look at the tablet from the trunk, now sealed in an evidence bag. If it hadn't been destroyed in the fire, it might hold the final minutes before everything went up in flames. But as the tech unit carefully powered it on using specialized equipment, a single notification flashed onto the screen, smudged, distorted, but readable. "Aubrey, Daddy said we're going on a secret trip." Keller froze. Because that single line hinted at a motive far darker than she had imagined. The glow from the evidence lab cast long shadows across the room. As Detective Keller stared at the tablet, the small screen flickered, displaying Aubrey's last message. "Daddy said we're going on a secret trip." The words were innocent enough, but in the context of what had happened, they were haunting. Keller felt a chill creep down her spine. Somewhere between a father's promise and a child's trust, something had broken irreparably.
Ethan Ward sat in the interrogation room, eyes darting around as if the walls themselves could speak. His once defiant posture had melted into something smaller, almost fragile. Yet there was a tension behind his eyes, a man teetering between fear and calculation. He had lied to police, destroyed evidence, and now the tablet threatened to unravel the carefully constructed world he had built. "Ethan," Keller said, sliding the tablet across the metal table, "your daughter sent this. Minutes before the fire. You told her you were taking her somewhere. Do you want to tell me what happened next?" He shook his head violently. I already told you. I left her. I didn't mean..." His voice cracked, trailing off. Keller leaned in, her gaze unwavering. "You didn't mean for a 2-year-old to die? Because your version of events doesn't match the evidence. Accelerant in the trunk, the fire's burn pattern, your phone records, and now this." He blinked rapidly, sweat forming on his forehead. It wasn't supposed to happen. I just wanted to scare her mother. She was keeping her from me. I didn't want to. She was supposed to be safe. I wasn't going to. Detective Keller's heart sank, but she forced herself to remain composed. The revelation was chilling. A child caught in a web of adult revenge. Ethan's anger, his desperation to control the situation, had escalated into a tragedy. Outside the station, investigators worked tirelessly, tracing Ethan's steps. Surveillance cameras revealed him driving the car slowly down the dimly lit back road before stopping near an isolated stretch consistent with the time of the fire. Witnesses confirmed a man had exited the vehicle frantically, pacing, shouting, but no one reported seeing him check on the child. Keller returned to the lab, watching the forensic team extract more data from the tablet. Another notification popped up, one that had been delayed in syncing with the cloud. A short video clip. Aubrey sat in her car seat, giggling innocently, her tiny hand reaching toward the camera. Then Ethan appeared in the frame, his face tense, whispering, "It'll be okay, baby. Just a quick trip." The next seconds were distorted, filled with movement, shadow, and then darkness. The room was silent. Even the text didn't breathe. "It's enough," Keller said quietly. "Enough to charge him with aggravated arson, involuntary manslaughter, and child endangerment. The lies, the fire, the planning, it all points to deliberate neglect. He left her to die." Ethan's fate was sealed long before the trial, but the emotional fallout rippled further than anyone expected. The mother, friends, and neighbors, each grappling with the betrayal of someone they trusted. And for Detective Keller, a haunting realization. Sometimes the most horrific crimes aren't committed by strangers in the dark. They're committed by those who claim to love us. The courtroom was packed the day the verdict was read. Ethan Ward was sentenced to 22 to 27.5 years in prison. He lowered his head as the judge's gavel fell, but the weight of his actions would never leave him. Aubrey's laughter, captured forever on a tiny tablet, would haunt everyone who had followed the investigation. As Keller stepped outside the courthouse, the wind carried a bitter reminder. Justice could be served, but some scars never healed. Somewhere a child's life was gone, and the world had watched a father's lies turn tragedy into an irreversible nightmare. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.